Welcome to the Rise Up For You podcast, where thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and executives from around the world share their practical tips, strategies, and stories to help you unleash your potential and achieve your goals. Your journey of growth to become your best starts now.
Hey, welcome to the Rise Up For You podcast. This is your host, Natalina Nastardine, also the CEO and founder of Rise Up For You. Before we jump into today's amazing episode with yet again another amazing guest, I want to remind you just a little bit about what we do. My team and I are working with organizations, leaders, and entrepreneurs around the world to enhance company culture, performance, potential, all through soft skills. So if you're anything like me and you love to push your potential, you want to be high performing on a day-to-day basis and truly have it all as an individual and as a business, check us out and make sure that you sign up for your free informative call. If you're a leader looking to support your team, we're happy to jump on a call with you and share how we can do that. And if you're an individual like myself and you just want that extra push through one-to-one coaching, apply for your free coaching call today. We have an amazing team of trainers and coaches that are here to serve you. And let's be real, it's hard to do things by yourself. We all have blind spots, including myself. And sometimes it's just that much easier when you have a coach, when you have a mentor that's by your side, cheering you on and helping you and your team get to the next level. Okay, my friends, don't forget to sign up for that call, whether you're a leader in the workplace or an individual looking to grow yourself. We're here to serve you. All right, let's jump into today's podcast. I'll see you there. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Rise Up For You podcast. This is your host, Natalina Nastardine, and I am so excited to bring another amazing episode, another amazing guest to the podcast today. Please help me welcome, wherever you are in the world, in the car, at home, Maggie Olson. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So it's kind of a tradition. I always love to start the podcast by letting the audience get to know our guest in their own words. So if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, walk us through your journey, we'd love to hear.
Yeah, thank you so much. My name's Maggie. I'm thrilled to be here. I am the owner, founder, CEO of Nova Chief of Staff. So Nova Chief of Staff is really the premier destination for Chief of Staff development, education, consulting, coaching, lots of things related to the Chief of Staff role. And my background is varied. I was a buyer at Nordstrom. I was in strategy at T-Mobile. I was a leader early on in my career, leading large teams in my early 20s in food and beverage and retail. So one of those fun kind of expert generalist backgrounds where you have a full web of lots of experiences that kind of lead you into the roles that you eventually become, great in. So that's me.
Yeah, I love that. So tell us a little bit. So you're an entrepreneur now. You built your own business. So because we have so many audience members that actually we split down the middle, right? Half of them are entrepreneurs, business owners that are running their own business and their team. And the other half are corporate professionals that are climbing the career ladder. So what I love about this episode is we're going to get a little bit of both because,
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about just that transition. What was it for you that maybe created that spark for you to move away from corporate and then to build a business and become an entrepreneur that still supports corporate?
Yeah, seriously. There's so many interconnections there. Let's see. So I was really raised in the corporate world. I was at Nordstrom for 5-6 years as a buyer and then in business planning. And then I ended up getting my MBA and moving into an executive development program at T-Mobile, competitive kind of post MBA program, and finally fell into that chief of staff role, which I can definitely chat more about, or you can learn more about us, later. But what's interesting is that I was raised by two pretty risk-averse parents, both PhDs in higher ed.
Yep.
So, not entrepreneurs. But my brother, who's just a couple years younger than me, has been an entrepreneur his entire life. So I think it was deep within me somewhere. And going back and getting my MBA, I was sort of like brought to be aware of the world of white space and blue ocean and solving problems and thinking about the things that you could potentially solve a problem for. And so I think that I've been minded towards entrepreneurship, but really through my MBA program started to keep an eye out for what that would look like, because I knew that I would really enjoy entrepreneurship. And then I fell into the chief of staff role. I'd never heard of what a chief of staff was until I was actually interviewing for the role, and I ended up loving it. It's this big combination of a role that kind of combined all the things I thought I was really good at in my previous roles, like business planning and organization and execution, and being that right hand to a founder or a business owner or business leader. And I realized that there's thousands of project management certifications out there, but there was really nowhere for hands-on practice to be a chief of staff. So that's kind of where I got my spark, my idea, like maybe I can build this. I can build something for chiefs of staff to get learning and development and education in. So it was a tough decision leaving the corporate world, leaving that 401k and the stock options, the desk of things that I didn't have to buy myself. But I was really excited about it. And it took me a while. It took me listening to, honestly, a lot of podcasts like yours to help give me the courage and confidence to go out and figure out how to do it and what to do, and just truly take the leap from a confidence perspective into the world of entrepreneurship, which I knew that I was ready for, but just didn't quite know how to get there.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk more about the chief of staff role, because I think it's a very critical component to building a successful organization. There's a lot of areas to it. It's a very robust role.
Yep.
And so for those that are maybe unfamiliar, because we have a lot of different levels here that listen to the podcast, can you break down, what are the functions of a chief of staff and why is it critical to have within an organization?
Yeah. At the highest level, like the most general description, a founder, a business owner, a business leader should be focused on the future. They should be heads up, looking forward, thinking about what's next, growth, vision, strategy, leadership. What happens when you don't have a chief of staff is that as a founder or a business leader, you're heads down chasing executional items, you're chasing follow-ups, you're executing on your initiatives. That just shouldn't be the case. Founders should stay the visionaries, and you should have a strategic right-hand thought partner who's excellent and fast at execution to really help you move your business forward more efficiently, effectively, and quickly from an execution perspective, and to keep your leadership team aligned with pointing everybody in the right direction. So from a general perspective, that's what a chief of staff does. More specifically, I'll list off a few things. A chief of staff leads things like business planning and rhythm of business. What are all the meetings you're having? How is information getting to you? What's important? What's not important? Follow-ups, getting people prepared for sessions. They lead executive project management and prioritization, filling gaps across company culture, events, communications, ghostwriting, all hands, the list goes on, but truly a chief of staff is a breadth versus a depth position. They can jump into a lot of different things and work cross-collaboratively as a leader to ensure that your business is being taken care of as a founder or business leader.
Yeah. And, for those that are listening, that might think okay, maybe I need a chief of staff, or maybe we need to bring this into our organization or company. How would you, what's the difference for those that are listening between the chief of staff and maybe an operations person? Because it sounds like could be some cross.
Yeah. Good question. I thought you were going to ask me executive assistant. That's the most common question.
My brain went to operations. I was like,
I love that. So the easiest way to describe the difference between a chief operating officer or an operations role and a chief of staff is that a chief of staff exists for the person. The chief of staff exists for that business leader. A COO or an operations person has their own scorecard, their own deliverables, really their own org chart full of different categories of operational work streams. A chief of staff exists to own, lead, manage, prioritize that business leader's initiatives. Just like an EA, executive assistant, exists to support a human, a chief of staff exists to support a human. But since we're there, an EA is much more tactical, focused on things like scheduling, travel, inbox management, logistics, and expenses. Those are core EA functions, which a chief of staff may be in the know about. They should understand all those things that are going on, but they're not the doer of the owner of those items.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So you transitioned to the entrepreneurship world. Tell us a little bit about what that was like, because I'm a former executive that built this business, and a lot, a lot of times they don't see like, the transition. They just see like boom, boom, right? They see you're there and they see the company, but the transition into building something on your own website, from the very bottom. Talk to us a little bit about that.
I feel like people go about this two ways. Some people just like launch right into it and they're like, okay, I'm taking clients. Here's my course or whatever it might be. I had to build my website first, build my proposition first, really dive into the language. Like, what is this offer? Who is it for? Yeah. I felt like for me, I had to build it all up first. And then I was kind of ready, I guess, to quote, go to market. So for me, that looked like, thinking about the concept, building the website, who's the customer. I had like maybe 50 plus informational interviews with people just like you, Netta, who were, maybe an executive or a role that would, ladder up right next to a chief of staff, and ask them, would you ever hire a fractional chief of staff, which is kind of where I was first headed in my entrepreneurial journey, is fractional chief of staff work, which is what I do. I consult as a chief of staff as well. But as the founder of Nova Chief of Staff, our flagship product is this Chief of Staff certification course. Yep. So as people say from entrepreneurship, pivots are kind of where things go. I wouldn't say I pivoted. I would just say that I planned on having this Chief of Staff certification course kind of on the side while I was consulting. And it's pretty much the opposite. This certification course is about 90% of my work effort, my day, my team. I have a small team that supports me, and then we do consulting as well.
Yeah, I love that. And what I like that you gave both kind of options, because you're right. Some people just like jump into it, and
which is great too.
Don't have everything, not all their ducks in a row, but it doesn't matter. They figure it out along the way. And then of course there's other times and other industries where you kind of have to figure out, what's my languaging, what's my offer, what is my intent here, where am I going? So it makes a lot of sense. And I do understand that the chief of staff role is still, I would say, up and coming. Like obviously there's a lot of opportunity there.
It's growing.
It's growing. It's kind of like soft skills, what we do, right? It's growing. There is still like so much opportunity. And I love that you've created this certification to help support the knowledge of it so that people could feel strong in what they do. What would you say are some of the biggest challenges? I'm going to pivot a little bit here because I think this is important. Being a chief of staff, you work, right next to the owner, the CEO, the founder. So you have a bird's eye view, right? Like you can see top down everything. Yep. What would you say are some of the biggest challenges that you think are hindering, let's just say the founder first, like the person that you are supporting? What are some of the things that you see are hindering their ability to execute on the vision and scale the growth of the team or company?
Well, the obvious one is not having a chief of staff. I mean, truly, one of the biggest barriers to executives and business leaders is being the doer. You cannot see your business clearly. You cannot see the vision of your company. You cannot dedicate time to planning and growth if you are in the weeds every single day, operationally in your business, following up with your team, executing on your initiatives. Like you just can't do it. Yeah. So whether that's an admin first, I usually recommend, first you hire an admin. That needs to be done first. Second would be a chief of staff. And maybe after a chief of staff, it's still possible to get pulled into the weeds. Schedule time to have strategic offsites, even if it's just with yourself, like once a quarter or every other month. Go out of town, go a couple hours away, book a hotel, spend the weekend kind of having a planning session. I think that probably the biggest barriers to founders and business leaders is just getting too tied up in the day-to-day of their business and not being able to step back and see their business as a whole and understand like the biggest rocks, the biggest priorities, the biggest barriers, and maybe truly who your customer is or who your customer has evolved into over time. So I think that's probably the biggest barrier that I would say for founders.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that. It's interesting because when hearing you speak, like I'm thinking about myself, right? And also thinking about all of the clients that we work with and kind of where their bottleneck is as well, right? Because if an organization is having trouble with scalability and growth, there's a bottleneck somewhere. And so it's identifying where that is. So it sounds to me that a chief of staff needs to be pretty dynamic. They need to be pretty agile. And I hate to say be a master of none, but like really understand like a lot of different things.
I like the term expert generalist.
Okay.
Like you are great at a lot of
You said
things.
that better than me.
I workshopped it. No, I'm just
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different things that you have to think about to support the owner, the founder, and then to kind of trickle it
Yep.
down to the organization.
Being comfortable in ambiguity, knowing that you're not going to know all the answers, but having the confidence that you can find them, utilize your resources. You may not be the person with the solution, but you're going to be the person finding the solution as a chief of staff. Yeah.
So somebody that is interested in being a chief of staff, or maybe they're listening to this and thinking, like, we need this for our organization, or this is my next play. Like, I would love to have this role in the company.
Yeah.
What would you say are the first few skills they need? Like,
Totally.
being a chief of staff, like, you got to have this quality.
Okay. So I think that, you can be a great chief of staff from a lot of different backgrounds, from a lot of, diverse experience. What makes a great chief of staff is someone who is driven, achievement focused, wants to learn a business from the top down, wants more responsibility, is comfortable enough networking with kind of high level leaders, curious, ambitious. It's kind of that like driven achiever mentality, and that you're okay without recognition, that you kind of don't have the ego that needs the spotlight, because often you are behind the scenes and you're kind of putting that business leader out in front of the people that you're, in your company. So that's who makes a great chief of staff. And what I would recommend for folks who are like, "Ooh, that's me. What should I do?" I would suggest that you start having conversations with business leaders that you look up to in your company. You will be surprised that some of them will say, "Yes, I'd love to have a coffee with you." Talk to them about what they do. Talk about the things that you're drawn to from a work perspective. Ask them if they're familiar with the chief of staff role, or what it's like to work with their admin, for example, which is definitely not a chief of staff, but it's in their back office. So how does their back office run? Start talking to people, start networking, and definitely check out Nova Chief of Staff. We have a certification program that is truly great for anyone, traditional education or not. It's hands-on practice doing the things chiefs of staff do every day. You're writing briefs, you're putting strategic recommendations together, you're building complex offsites, you're ghostwriting, like you're putting executive project management documents together, you're presenting verbally and visually. So it's a great resource if that's what you're thinking about, but definitely start with conversations with people in your network.
I love that. And I like the tangible certification that you mentioned, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but
sure.
It's got to be hands-on, right? Experiential learning that's going to actually move the needle for individuals. I love that. Maggie, thank you so much for joining us. I would love to jump into the power section of the interview and ask you some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
The first question is, we always like to ask, if you were to leave this world tomorrow, God forbid, what's one final message you would leave? We call it our golden nugget.
That you can do it. That you can do it. Oftentimes I run into people who just don't have the confidence that they can do the job, whatever that job is. And you absolutely can. It's not always easy, but you can find the resources, the people, the network, the conversations, and you can do it.
Love that. And here at Rise Up For You, we're really big on values. We have values that are just non-negotiables. What's a value for you that's an absolute non-negotiable?
Oh my gosh. It comes down to, I think, integrity, honesty, kind of that moral compass, like do what you say you're going to do. And that's it.
I love that. And I have one more question for you, but before I ask, please share a little bit more. I know you talked about novachiefofstaff.com. There's a certification. Anything else that you want to share with our audience so that they can connect with you?
Yeah, start there. Follow me on LinkedIn. I write every day about the chief of staff role, Maggie-Olson, -COS. And I'd love to connect with you. Send us a note. We also are happy to chat with anybody who's like, I don't know, is this right for me? We're happy to chat with you. So just know that you can find us and we'd love to chat with you.
Fantastic. Thank you. And final question is, as you know, we are Rise Up For You. What comes to mind for you when you hear that phrase?
I already touched on confidence. So I think I'm gonna go the direction of invest in yourself. And in whatever way that means to you. Maybe it means go out in the morning and have that morning walk and do it every day because you know you need it. Or maybe it means you're investing in a professional course. Really think about what you need to invest in yourself deeply at your core, and make moves to do it.
I love that last part. Make moves to do it. Did everybody hear that?
And actually do it. Take action.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a great Power podcast. And thank you to everyone that joined us today for the Rise Up For You podcast. Again, every single week, we are bringing you multiple episodes. You can catch us here on YouTube. You can also listen to our podcast when you're working out, when you're in the car, when you're at home washing the dishes, whatever's convenient for you. But every week we are bringing amazing thought leaders, experts, entrepreneurs from around the world that really exist to help support you and your potential and your team's potential. And that's what it's all about. So thanks again for joining the Rise Up For You podcast. And we will see you next time. Thank you again for joining us, Maggie.
Thank you so much, Netta. Have a good day.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel and check us out on social media. We are everywhere, from LinkedIn to Instagram to Facebook, at our simple handle at Rise Up For You. On every single platform, it's exactly the same. And we're providing new content on every single platform, so there's something different everywhere. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel, subscribe to our podcast, and connect with us on social media. I'll see you next time.